Recent efforts by Ukraine to fight corruption at the highest levels reveal a daunting reality. Despite brave initiatives like uncovering massive scandals among top officials, the true scope of entrenched corruption remains hidden like an iceberg beneath the surface. These revelations hint at the enormous challenge ahead. How can Ukraine reduce corruption to meet NATO's strict standards when these issues are so deeply rooted? Critics point out that even now, Ukraine's government faces intense scrutiny, especially after May 2022 when President Zelensky signed laws suspending opposition political parties deemed aligned with Russia. This move led to the banning of 11 parties, including the largest opposition faction, which openly favored closer ties with Moscow. Although justified as necessary under martial law for national security, critics argue this approach risks consolidating power excessively, squeezing out diverse political voices. Meanwhile, NATO's membership rules demand that new members synchronize their defense systems with NATO standards, transparent procurement, civilian oversight, and integrated intelligence. Ukraine has been striving to meet these standards since 2014, after Russia's annexation of Crimea and the civil war in Donbass. Western-backed reforms have modernized Ukraine's military, adopting NATO training methods, command structures, and advanced equipment. The 2023 NATO-Ukrainian framework aimed at interoperability is a crucial step, yet significant hurdles remain. Outdated Soviet logistics, incomplete secure communications, and ongoing reforms keep Ukraine from operating seamlessly alongside NATO forces. The core issue? The ongoing war makes full compliance nearly impossible now. Achieving complete military interoperability at this stage is like fitting a new gear into a machine shattered by conflict. But the biggest question remains, will the persistent chaos, corruption, and war forever keep Ukraine chained outside NATO's tightly knit circle? Or is there a hidden, unforeseen twist lurking ahead? The answer could reshape the entire future of Europe's security landscape, and it's closer than we think. Recent developments reveal a startling truth: Ukraine's path to NATO membership is blocked by much more than official rules. Despite the alliance's open-door policy, the reality is that a nation embroiled in active conflict faces insurmountable hurdles. The question arises, could a sudden push into NATO ignite a broader war? The stakes have never been higher. Understanding NATO's rules, it's clear that membership hinges on unanimous approval among all member countries, currently 32. Even if Ukraine met every requirement, just one member's veto could doom the prospect. History shows this isn't just hypothetical. Delays and obstacles are standard when political tensions spike. Turkey and Hungary, for instance, paused Sweden's bid over their own disagreements. What if Ukraine faces similar roadblocks? The potential for paralysis is enormous. But the biggest obstacle isn't formal criteria, it's the shadow of war itself. NATO's cornerstone, Article 5, mandates that an attack on one member is an attack on all. With Ukraine deeply embroiled in conflict, accepting it now could turn the alliance into a direct battlefield. Imagine nightly skies filled with Russian drones, missiles streaking through the darkness, and Russian troops pushing forward. Would NATO risk getting dragged into a war with Russia? The alliance claims support for Ukraine, but few are eager for the tragic costs of direct confrontation. Not a single NATO country has sent combat troops, only supplies, training, and volunteers. The risk of escalation is staggering. If Ukraine joins NATO during ongoing hostilities, what would happen then? Could the alliance's freshly pledged support truly shield Kyiv? Or would it ignite a firestorm, forcing countries into a war they desperately want to avoid? The clock is ticking, and the answers depend on one dangerous question: how far would NATO go to defend Ukraine if conflict intensifies? The unexpected twist? The very attempt to include Ukraine could trigger a conflict that nobody is prepared to control. Imagine a world teetering on the brink of chaos, a future where the flames of war could ignite at any moment. Could Ukraine's attempt to join NATO be the spark that sets off an uncontrollable fire? So far, NATO members have held back, providing supplies and training but avoiding direct combat. Yet, what happens if Ukraine is fast-tracked into the alliance? The stakes skyrocket. By 2028 or 2030, the landscape might shift dramatically. Leading military nations like the United Kingdom, France, Germany, and Poland could be ready to leap into the conflict directly. This hinges on Europe's ambitious rearmament plans launched in 2025. If they succeed, a new, intensified phase of the war could unfold. NATO's eastern flank already mobilizes for a potential showdown, better prepared than ever before. They're stacking advanced equipment, boosting forces, and streamlining logistics, ready to strike from Poland, Finland, the Baltic states, and beyond the Black Sea from Romania and Bulgaria. But here's the terrifying twist: Russia's military might, stretched thin by ongoing war efforts, would be squeezed rapidly. Vulnerable regions could fall into chaos, inviting invasion. Yet, the biggest danger lurks in the shadows: the possibility of nuclear escalation. Russia's leader has warned that crossing red lines could trigger devastating responses. The supply of tanks, missiles, and fighter jets, though significant, might not be enough to threaten Putin's grip on power. However, if NATO forces unleash overwhelming firepower from multiple fronts, backed by unmatched air superiority, that's a different story entirely. President Putin has been crystal clear: the very idea of Russia's destruction could push him to the ultimate brink. In 2018, he warned that any attempt to wipe out Russia would face catastrophic consequences. Are we approaching a point where a miscalculation could spiral into a nuclear nightmare? And with the current buildup, the question looms: is the world on the edge of an all-out confrontation that could threaten global existence itself? The clash of military might and national pride has reached a boiling point. Russia's top leader, Vladimir Putin, has made some chilling statements warning that if his country is attacked, he will respond with everything he has. He's openly declared a revised nuclear doctrine, emphasizing that if Russia's very existence is threatened, they have a legal right to retaliate with devastating force. Imagine the thunderous sounds of missiles roaring through the sky, the scent of smoke lingering in the air. Putin's words echo: why should we accept a world where Russia no longer exists? If someone dares to annihilate us, we will fight back fiercely, no matter the cost. These are not empty threats. He's made it clear that his country would launch a full response, risking global catastrophe. But who truly believes in this dangerous rhetoric? Critics dismiss these warnings as mere brinkmanship, calculated posturing designed to intimidate. Yet many analysts know better. In distant cities, officials in cushioned offices deny the reality of such escalation. Meanwhile, on battlefields far away, the terrifying reality unfolds. Frontline soldiers brace as the threat of nuclear conflict becomes more than just words. NATO leaders face their own dilemma. Many are hesitant to risk the unthinkable. They debate: would they actually honor their Article 5 promise to defend any member under attack? Skeptics point out that some allies, especially powerful nations like the United States, hesitate to send troops into direct combat. There's uncertainty. Some leaders worry that full-scale involvement could trigger a confrontation with Russia that spirals beyond control. By the end of 2025, even NATO's strongest members admit that their military superiority isn't enough for a full-on war with a heavily damaged Russia. Advanced fighter jets and surveillance tech give them an edge, yes. But they aren't prepared for the chaos of a broad conflict, especially with a nuclear-armed Russia in the mix. What if Ukraine, caught in the crossfire, were fast-tracked into NATO? Would the alliance finally act decisively or retreat, leaving Ukraine to the mercy of Russian advances? Critics say rushing Ukraine into NATO might weaken the alliance's credibility. Many worry that the chaos would fracture NATO from within, deepening the divide among member states. The stakes couldn't be higher. Every delay, every hesitation, could bring the world closer to the brink where a single mistake might unleash chaos unlike anything seen before. And as the tension thickens, the question remains: are world leaders truly ready for what might come next? In a shocking twist of global diplomacy, President Donald Trump's 28-point peace plan for the Ukraine-Russia war seems rigged like a fixed poker game, where the house always wins for cats at the expense of the canary. Ukrainian and European leaders recoil in horror at these terms, seeing them as total surrender to Russia's wildest demands. Will Ukraine's bold push into NATO spark a nuclear apocalypse or finally shatter Putin's empire? The air hums with tension, like thunder rumbling before a storm that could engulf the world. Back in the grip of the ongoing nightmare, failure to defend Ukraine hits like a betrayal as bitter as cold rain on exposed skin. It could shatter NATO's foundation, deepening cracks that echo like distant gunfire through the alliance's fragile walls. Russian involvement in Ukraine echoes with the stench of betrayal, its imperial ambitions choking the air like smoke from a dying fire. But what if fast-tracking Ukraine into NATO flips the script, humiliating dictators worldwide and exposing their vulnerabilities in a way that leaves them scrambling for cover? Imagine the jolt. Fast-tracking Ukraine into NATO isn't just reckless, it's a strategic masterstroke that undermines global rogues. Critics argue it erodes NATO's credibility, especially when compared to Hungary's strict path, which Ukraine bypasses like jumping a queue in wartime chaos. Hungary fumes, echoing the outrage of nations like the US, Germany, Slovakia, Belgium, Slovenia, and Spain, who whisper reservations amid the fog of smoke and sirens. Yet, in this clash of wills, where every misstep feels like grit underfoot, a defense analyst named Ruben F. Johnson calls for action from Warsaw's frontline trenches. His voice rises sharp and urgent, painting a vivid picture of Ukraine's NATO entry as Europe's shield, not its weakness. Johnson, grounded in the Baltic chill where wind carries the scent of frost-kissed duty, argues from Poland's exposed edge. He slashes through fears with precision, declaring fast-tracking as the decisive blow that halts Russian aggression once and for all. First, he reveals, it would curb Putin's never-ending drive like a leash on a rabid beast. The taste of defeat hangs heavy, forcing Russia to face its diminished role. Picture this unexpected shift: Ukraine's membership isn't just defense, it's offensive liberation. Western responses so far have emboldened Putin, tying him tighter to authoritarian allies in a web of deceit that smells like rotten alliances. These so-called unbeatable partnerships might crumble under NATO's gaze, leaving regimes isolated in the echo of their own crumbling facades. Rhetorical question lingers in the air: does risking nuclear fire now save lives later, or invite annihilation? Second, he insists, bolsters Europe's defense against future storms, its voice booming like artillery correcting course. Imagine the transformed battlefield, where wasted opportunities haunt dreams at night. Third, Ukraine gains constant access to unmatched resources, weapons, and intelligence, turning weakness into a fortress of iron resolve. The final twist? Even if war delays full integration, signals sent now could deter Moscow without escalating hell. Johnson's points sting like barbed wire, challenging NATO to act before regret's bitter tang sinks in. Is this the hidden cleverness that humiliates tyrants, or a gamble that backfires spectacularly? Recent discussions suggest that rushing Ukraine into NATO might be a dangerous gamble instead of a strategic win. The most powerful military forces in Europe are now those of Ukraine, yet many question if the alliance is truly ready for such a leap. Can a country still embroiled in conflict truly become a NATO member without risking catastrophic consequences? The stakes are higher than anyone imagined. Ukraine's army has astonishing capabilities. They've redefined modern warfare, showing resilience against a far larger enemy. Their soldiers have learned to neutralize threats in ways no other European force has, rewriting the rules of combat. But despite these impressive traits, the situation on the front lines is deteriorating fast. The hope that Ukraine has already contained Russia's power is starting to crumble. Rather, it feels lifted from political myth-making. Yet, there's a silver lining: Ukraine's battle-hardened troops could be invaluable to NATO. Their presence could swell alliance ranks by nearly a third, adding about 1 million troops to the combined strength. A game-changer, or a ticking time bomb? But it's not just numbers that matter. Training is crucial. Recent reports reveal that Ukrainian soldiers sent for NATO instruction are unimpressed. They see it as relics of the past. Drones, the cutting-edge weapon in their arsenal, are often dismissed or removed during drills. Could this mean NATO strategies are outdated? Or maybe, Ukraine offers the expertise to revolutionize joint tactics? Already, Ukrainian drone specialists are training NATO forces in Poland, sharing their battlefield lessons. Are we witnessing a transfer of high-tech warfare knowledge? Or is NATO's old-school doctrine about to meet its match? The answer could change everything. As the countdown continues, one thing is clear: Ukraine's entry into NATO could ignite unforeseen chaos. The risks of escalating conflict, potentially drawing the entire continent into a broader war, loom ominously. Every moment the alliance hesitates or advances, the chances of a devastating clash increase. Can the alliance truly prepare for this new era of warfare? Or are we unknowingly creating a monster that might turn against us all? The future remains shrouded in uncertainty, with the specter of war just beyond the horizon. In the end, Ukraine's hopes of joining NATO might be like trying to patch a sinking ship with just a thin piece of tape. The promises of strong security guarantees outside the alliance could be more effective and much safer. By opting out, Ukraine could strip away one of Putin's biggest stories, exposing his true ambitions. This small victory might lead to political wins down the line, opening new diplomatic paths. Are these risks worth the potential gains? Or will rushing into NATO only deepen the conflict, turning a noble dream into a dangerous nightmare? The stakes have never been higher. In recent days, a shocking plan has surfaced, a 28-point peace initiative proposed by the administration of a prominent American leader aiming to end the Ukraine-Russia conflict. But behind the surface lies a devastating question: could this plan be more about protecting powerful interests than truly achieving peace? Critics are alarmed, believing many terms secretly favor Russia, not Ukraine. One of the most contentious clauses demands Ukraine enshrine in its constitution that it will never seek NATO membership and that NATO members agree to permanently exclude Ukraine from future alliance plans. Imagine that, an entire nation forced to abandon its dreams of security and protection, caged behind barriers of diplomatic promises. This issue has haunted Ukraine long before the recent invasion, yet now it is etched into the heart of peace negotiations. Is it truly an end to conflict or the beginning of a new capitulation? The debate rages: does Ukraine accept such conditions, or fight to preserve its sovereignty? But what if Ukraine dares to join NATO right now? The implications are staggering. Despite the fiery rhetoric, the reality is stark: Ukraine's immediate accession remains near impossible. The alliance's strict standards, demanding transparent governance, military interoperability, and stable civilian control, are hefty hurdles. Since the onset of war, Ukraine's political landscape has been turbulent. Since the 2019 election, stability has been a distant dream. With martial law extending into 2026, legitimate elections are impossible, an issue that disqualifies Ukraine from immediate membership. Even more troubling is corruption, an endemic blight that NATO cannot overlook. Top officials, military procurement scandals, and allegations of misuse ripple through Ukraine's government like a toxic fog. How can a nation fighting to stay afloat in chaos meet the alliance's stringent demands? Yet, the most pivotal barrier may be the ongoing conflict and active war zone. While NATO does not outright forbid members in conflict, the alliance's core principle, Article 5, binds members to defend each other. Accepting Ukraine now would require all members' unanimous approval, an almost impossible feat given the stark realities on the ground. Would NATO risk turning Ukraine into a direct battlefield with Russia? Would backing Ukraine's NATO bid ignite a nuclear crisis? Russian President Vladimir Putin's warnings of nuclear escalation echo in the minds of many. If NATO forces support Ukraine more directly, sending troops, high-tech weapons, the risk of global catastrophe spikes. Can any alliance member truly afford such a gamble? Envision a future where Ukraine becomes part of NATO, yet the war persists, and Russian missile strikes grow more deadly. Would the alliance risk unleashing a war that spirals beyond control? Will the powerful nations of Europe and North America be willing to face the devastating human cost? As tensions mount, an undeniable truth emerges: a lot more than political will is at stake. It's a question of survival, strategy, and whether the world is prepared for the worst. In a world teetering on the edge, the decision to admit Ukraine into NATO might trigger an unstoppable chain reaction, one that could reshape global security forever. Are we willing to gamble on peace, or are we pushing the world towards an unimaginable nightmare? To understand what's truly at stake, we need to look beyond rhetoric and confront the brutal truths lying beneath the surface. Imagine this: a world teetering on the edge of calamity, where one wrong move could ignite the flames of global chaos. Feel the chill of isolation as Russia turns to shadowy alliances, its grip tightening like frost on metal. And at the heart of it all, Ukraine pays the ultimate price. Could NATO's rash decision shatter more than just their hopes? Reflecting on the last chapter, the West's reaction to Russia's push into Ukraine has forced Russia to regroup, not retreat, weaving deeper ties with nations like North Korea, Iran, and China, plus countless others from the global south. This pivot hasn't favored the West, it's a stark reminder of shifting power. Now, picture the chaos emerging from turmoil, alliances forming among authoritarian regimes that watch the world's drama unfold with cold calculation. North Korea, Iran, China. Dozens of countries across the global south, united in upheaval. Why hasn't this benefited the West? The answer stings like a whip: without binding pledges to defend Ukraine, with soldiers on the ground, boots pounding grass-stained earth, sweat mixing with mud, this silence whispers validation to Putin's darkest fears that NATO's reach into Ukraine is a death knell for Russia. Does that push Putin to fold, to cede ground in this bloody quagmire? Oh, no. It might, could it, make everything spiral into catastrophe far worse. Ukraine, that resilient underdog, is already crumbling under financial strain, relying on handouts and loans just to keep breathing, let alone fueling a war machine in the face of relentless bombardment. Hear the distant rumble of missiles whistling through the air, smell the acrid smoke of shattered hopes rising from scorched soil. As of November 21, 2025, Russian strikes have ravaged every major thermal and hydroelectric plant, plunging the nation into darkness. Feel the bone-deep cold creeping in, Zelensky's words echoing like a terrified whisper, the harshest winter looms ahead. Yet Russia, despite its own wounds, economies warped by conflict, maintains a crushing edge. Feel the weight of their armored might, faces grim under helmets smeared with dirt and oil, engines roaring like beasts unleashed. Ukraine's bravery, ground down inch by agonizing inch, has rewritten warfare's playbook against a giant. But Russia only admitted the war's reality in 2024, years after invading, their rhetoric shifting without the full mobilization that would unleash floods of manpower and resources. Nations in conflict typically devour 25% or more of their GDP on defense, Ukraine hemorrhaging 36.7% in 2023, poised for 31% in 2025. Russia? A mere 5 to 7%, debts barely grazing 20% of GDP. The divide yawns wide, a chasm of disparity. Pour it all together, shoving Ukraine into NATO now, without ironclad vows to activate Article 5's shield of mutual defense, risks not just ruin for Ukraine but devastation for an unprepared alliance. Disaster could ripple out, unstoppable. What about the second reason to accelerate Ukraine's NATO entry, the most compelling one, yet shrouded in danger? If this unfolds by 2028 or 2030, once Europe rearms with ferocity, powers like the UK, France, Germany, and Poland might leap into the fray. NATO's eastern flank bulges with force, troops marching under crisp banners, jets slicing skies with thunderous growls. Fronts could erupt in Poland, Finland, the Baltics, even across the Black Sea from Romania and Bulgaria, overwhelming Russia's stretched lines, exposing vast vulnerabilities like chinks in ancient armor. But here's the twist that freezes your blood: this gamble flirts with nuclear annihilation. Putin hasn't unleashed doomsday over Abrams tanks or F-16s yet, but amassed NATO armies on multiple fronts, with unchallenged air dominance raining precision from above? That crosses a line he vowed to defend, amending Russia's doctrine in chilling tones back in 2018. Remember his words to journalist Vladimir Solovyov? If someone decides to destroy the territory, the world holds breath, will pride, power, and desperation compel him to press that button, unleashing hell's fury? Could this be the moment when Putin's bluff shatters against NATO's might? Or is it humiliation waiting to unfold, Russia's lone wolf facade crumbling? One misstep, and who's left humiliated, the West stumbling into war they can't finish? The stakes climb higher with every heartbeat. What secrets does Putin hide below the surface, ready to explode in an unexpected betrayal? As alliances fracture and shadows lengthen, the real question burns: will Ukraine's fight ignite a fire that consumes us all? Stay tuned, the mysteries deepen, and the next revelation could redefine everything. Imagine a world where Ukraine's path to NATO becomes a blazing highway, rushing past all warnings and warnings, risking chaos. The plan suggests that admitting Ukraine might stop Russia's relentless expansion, yet it could instead ignite the next global catastrophe. Some leaders believe Ukraine's fierce determination makes them the perfect candidate, 3/4 of their people support it. But is this support blind obedience, or a dangerous illusion? The idea is that Ukraine's entry would send a powerful message of unity and strength, dispelling doubts worldwide. Yet, powering ahead without full readiness is like building a house on shaky ground. Ukrainian forces have modernized rapidly since 2014, adopting NATO standards, but gaps remain: outdated equipment, incomplete communication systems, and the chaos of ongoing war make full interoperability impossible. How long can they keep up? How much longer can NATO wait? Now, let's consider the biggest threat: war. Officially, NATO's open-door policy says any European nation willing and able can join if every current member agrees. But unity is fragile. Turkey and Hungary have already blocked potential new members over unrelated disputes. The real question is, what if Ukraine joins while the war rages? The alliance's core principle, Article 5, mandates collective defense. That means an attack on Ukraine could drag all NATO nations into a war they're not prepared to fight. Night after night, Russian drones and missiles rain down on Ukraine's cities, sound of sirens, smell of burning fuel, and the fear of escalation. Most NATO countries are hesitant, supporting Ukraine with supplies, intelligence, and volunteers but avoiding direct combat. Entering NATO during wartime could be the tipping point, triggering a full-scale conflict, with serious risks. In the coming years, especially between 2028 and 2030, the most powerful European members could be pushed to intervene directly, feeling the pressure of new military alliances and expectations. NATO forces, with their advanced equipment and thousands of troops, could launch fresh offensives across Eastern Europe and the Black Sea. But here's the twist: such a move might provoke Russia's most terrifying threat, nuclear retaliation. Vladimir Putin has already altered Russia's nuclear doctrine, hinting at the possibility. What if the alliance's overwhelming force awakens the bear's darkest instincts? The sound of distant missiles, the cold rush of fear, could this lead to the unthinkable? And as diplomatic lines blur, the line between peace and catastrophe becomes razor-thin. The question remains, are world leaders underestimating the danger, or are they willing to gamble everything just to topple a single government? The stakes could not be higher. The world teeters on the edge, watching, waiting. What will happen when the next domino falls? In recent days, a bold new initiative emerged: an ambitious 28-point plan proposed to end the fierce war between Ukraine and Russia. But surprisingly, some of its terms seem to favor darker motives, leaving many questioning who really benefits from this complicated deal. Could it be that the plan is orchestrated more for Russia's interests than Ukraine's? The stakes have never been higher, and tensions are mounting around one key clause: Ukraine must promise never to join NATO. Imagine the shockwaves if Ukraine, a country fighting for its survival, was barred from ever joining the alliance. For decades, the question of Ukraine's NATO membership has ignited controversy, fueling conflicts, sparking debates, dividing nations. Now, this issue is front and center in international politics, threatening to reshape the entire landscape of European security. But what if Ukraine's path to NATO were suddenly blocked forever? Would this mean surrender, or a new chapter of covert struggles and simmering conflicts? The answer isn't simple. While many believe that full NATO membership for Ukraine is nothing but a distant dream, recent developments suggest it's a mountain fiercely guarded and perhaps insurmountable for now. The risk of such a decision spiraling into a wider war is ever present, hanging in the balance like a loaded gun. Let's dig deeper. What are the real hurdles standing in Ukraine's way, beyond mere political rhetoric? What about the harsh realities of international alliances? And how does this all connect to the brutal conflict raging across their eastern borders? As we peel back the layers, shocking truths emerge that could change everything we thought we knew about diplomacy, war, and the future of Europe itself. Imagine a future where Ukraine's bid to join NATO accelerates at a breakneck speed, ignoring every warning sign. Some believe this bold leap could stop Russian expansion dead in its tracks, but what if it instead ignites a global nightmare? The plan is bold, driven by Ukraine's fierce spirit. 3/4 of their population support it. Yet, is this allegiance genuine, or a dangerous illusion? The message of unity is enticing. It promises strength and a show of solidarity to the world. But rushing in without full preparation? That's like trying to build a skyscraper on quicksand. Since 2014, Ukraine has modernized its military, adopting NATO standards. Yet, gaping holes remain: outdated equipment, scrambled communication lines, and the chaos of ongoing conflict makes seamless cooperation impossible. How much longer can Ukraine keep pace? How long can NATO afford to wait before acting? Now, consider the biggest threat lurking behind this daring move: war itself. Official rules say any European country willing and capable can join NATO if every current member agrees. But unity is fragile. Turkey and Hungary have already blocked potential new members over unrelated political disputes. What happens if Ukraine joins while its skies are filled with Russian drones and missiles nightly? The core NATO principle, Article 5, promises collective defense. But in reality? An attack on Ukraine could drag all member countries into a conflict they fear, an endless chain of escalation. Every night, sirens blare. Cities burn, the stench of smoke lingers in the air. Fear seeps into the hearts of civilians. Supporters offer supplies, intelligence, volunteers, but they dodge the most dangerous step: direct military intervention. Enter NATO now, amid active war? That could be the spark, turning a regional dispute into a full-blown, world-shaking conflict. Experts warn that by 2028 or 2030, powerful European nations like France, Germany, and Poland might feel compelled to step into the fight directly. With their advanced weaponry and troop levels, NATO could launch new offensives across Eastern Europe, the Baltic states, and along the Black Sea. Yet, here's where it gets chilling: such escalation could provoke Russia's most terrifying threat, nuclear retaliation. Vladimir Putin has already redefined Russia's nuclear doctrine, hinting at the possibility of unleashing its most destructive weapons if pushed too far. The distant rumble of missiles, the cold wind of impending catastrophe. Could diplomatic blunders and reckless moves push the world toward the unthinkable? As the lines between peace and war blur, the world's leaders sit on a razor's edge, risking everything for an uncertain victory. Is this gamble worth the price? Or are they blindly rushing toward an irreversible disaster? The stakes are higher than ever: one wrong move, one domino falling, and the future could be changed forever. The question lingers: what will happen next? And are we truly prepared for the fallout?